ESPN.com came out with an NBA top 10 list that sort of drew a little bit of controversy this week. Obviously, the consensus number one was who else? MJ himself, 6-0 in the finals, six MVP, finals MVPs. No, begins and ends with him. But it was the rest of the list that drew a little bit of controversy, namely Kobe Bryant coming in at number 9. Granted, ahead of Shaq, which I thought was meaningful. Where would Kobe fall on your list? LeBron was 2, Magic was 5, and Larry was 7.
Wow. See, the guy who usually gets underrated on this list is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Was he 3?
Yeah, he sure was.
He was. And so he's kind of the guy who people kind of forget about. Was Wilt 4?
Wilt was 4, yeah. Try to fill in the rest of the blanks. So I think I mentioned Magic was 5. Oh, sorry, no, 4. No, Wilt was 6, not 4.
Wilt was 6. That makes sense because he didn't win as many championships. But when we just talk about a great player, right, he was that. Was it another Celtic that was number 4?
4 has the record for most NBA titles of all time.
That's right. Yeah. So 9 of them, or 11. I'm sorry.
11. You got it, Bill Russell. So, all right. So that was 5 Magic, 6 Wilt, 7 Larry. Who was 8 if Kobe was 9 and Shaq was 10?
Okay. Who was 8? Oh, goodness.
A little more modern era. I think 2000.
Okay. Oh, right. That soon. Okay. So.
Well, I'll give you a little hint. A guy who played for Popovich.
Okay. So the big man.
Yeah.
Big. Yeah. So.
Well, he's one of the ACC guys out of Wake Forest, Tim Duncan.
That sure is. How about that? Yeah. So good.
So I'd love to get your take. What's your take on that list? Should Magic and LeBron be flipped, or what do you think about Kobe not cracking the top 5?
I think the thing, if you have an argument with Kobe, is that he wasn't the greatest team player. In one of the documentaries, Shaq said, the team was kind of, down. They were like, Kobe never passes the ball, da-da-da-da-da. And he said, hey, listen, I'm going to go talk to him. He goes and talks to him, and he comes back. He tells the rest of the group, "You better get the rebound." In other words, he's not going to stop shooting. So to have him that low, I'm not sure. But I'm not a guy who necessarily puts him as close as others do to Jordan. Right? Because he didn't play defense all the time. He had an incredible ability to play defense, but he didn't play it all the time. And the other side of that is he took a lot of shots. He came to the point later where he, when they won, the 3 and then had a little break and won the 2 championships. He had matured quite a bit, and I think he was starting to make guys around him better. But he never saw a shot he didn't like. As I just love him as a person, being able to to speak Italian so fluently, and how he had so successfully transitioned. Was such an advocate for women's basketball and women's sport in general, was coaching his daughter, won an Oscar. For me, I think is one of the things that we don't look at a lot when we look at our heroes in sport is how they transition to normal life. Many of them, leave their best days behind them and they're only in their mid-30s, right? And they've already lived the best of what they're going to live in life because they didn't see, anything past sport, right? And so really, I love to, as we watched, and certainly he had some challenges midways there through his career, but ultimately his transition there at the end, and the guy he had become off the court is, could be ahead of Jordan.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Chelsea's here to chime in with a little bit of the reaction on social media that occurred after Kobe received such a low ranking. Chelsea.
Yes, I mean, the biggest thing was that Kobe didn't crack top 5. Twitter erupted when the list was published, but it was, from the comments that I was seeing, a lot of it had to do with not only just why Kobe didn't crack top 5, but also the quote unquote insult it was that Tim Duncan had been higher on the list than Kobe. Saying that he didn't face the same adversity, he played with more Hall of Famers than Kobe did, so that's why he was able to get that higher spot. So I'm interested to understand your input on that, Pinball.
There is no bad argument about putting Kobe in the top 5, right? I mean, he could be there. There's no question about it. Doing these kinds of things and trying to take emotion out of it probably involves some kind of analytical process that I wasn't privy to. And when we talk about Hall of Famers, his Hall of Famer was not just a Hall of Famer. Right, his Hall of Famer's name was Shaquille O'Neal, and so when you won 3 of them with Shaquille, right? I can understand maybe people not placing the same merit. I wouldn't agree though, right? I would put him before Tim Duncan, It's what makes it fun. It's what creates the interest and the argument. I would have put, for me personally, I don't know if he would have been in the top 5, but he would have been before Tim, right? When you look at those guys, when you say the guys in the top 5, right? Let's call them out. Who you're going to replace? Who are you going to take out of the top 5?
Good question.
It's Michael, LeBron, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Russell, and Magic Johnson.
Who do you take out of there?
I'm going to call a friend on this one.
I
don't know. I'm going to put the heat on somebody else.
and I try to get him in there. I think about that and try to say, but you almost have to go. You have to go LeBron, who's all the way up at number 2, right? Or I believe you've got to go Magic. The other 2 guys, I don't know how you say Kareem or Bill Russell, who won, was it 9 or 11 championships?
9.
I don't 9. So 9 in 11 years or something like that, right? So I'm not sure. Yeah, how do you?
Well, and Pinball too. To your point, it is so subjective, right? Like you can make a case if you want to put Kobe at number 5 or number 4. You're making a case based on it. I think the fact that he aligned with Shaq for those first 3 championships just split enough votes there to potentially just bring him down a couple of notches. For me, what really stood out was the fact they put Kobe ahead of Shaq. And I think that really, to me, is what spoke volumes on that list. Because you could have probably made a case for putting Shaq in the top 5, too, as one of the most dominant big men ever to play.
So we do have some from the chat from some of our audience here. Ricardo says, I don't think that they put enough respect on Magic or Kobe's name. Magic has 5 championships out of 9 NBA final appearances. Armand Z says, take out Bill Russell. And Dennis K says, haha, let's keep LeBron out of this. So let's move.
That's good. Now the keep Bill Russell out. That is recency bias.
I totally agrrie. There's a reason Bill Russell.
You didn't see Bill Russell play, right? Who was it who made that comment?
Armand Z. Armand, do you want to come off video?
I just want to ask Armand, is he
There you are.
under 35?
Yeah, I am.
Yes. So recency bias. Listen. I understand, Armand. You don't know him, and I didn't see his championships either, and I'm 50 something. So when I was a young guy, I think he was winning his last of those. But a guy who is the leader of a team who won 9 championships. The goal of the game is not how fancy you are, how many points you drop. It's actually winning championships. That's why you play the game. You don't play the game to have the most rebounds. You don't play the game to have the most steals. All of those things complemented and a part of it. You play to win the championship. And when a guy wins 9 championships and believe me, those Celtics teams were laced with great players, and they had a great coach, a great leader. So yes, that maybe takes away a little bit of that. But if I'm going to take someone off the list, he would probably be the last guy. Even though I wouldn't rank him number 2, he'd probably be the last guy that I took off the list. Now to you.
Well, my argument would be that his competition wasn't to the level of competition that potentially the other players that we're talking about in this list. And I just always heard, although you're right, I never saw with my own eyes, that those Celtics teams were just so great and their competition was not anywhere near them, that those 11 championships came easier. That's the only argument I have.
So part of that, Armand, is winning consistently is not just about how well you play or how good your team is. It is a leadership thing. There have been so many teams with great players on them that have not won championships. And you've seen it time and time again. And many times the best teams don't win the championships. They're not the most talented teams. There's a leadership dynamic that is inherent in that process. And when we measure the competition, it's important to measure it against the day, right? We have so many little things that they have to work out. And so, yes, guys are stronger and faster and they learn technically how to shoot when they're 9 years old. And so there's some things that change, and that's just progress. And so we have to measure teams, or I shouldn't say have to. I believe it's important to measure teams relative to their place in history, because at some level, they had to compete with the same rules as everybody else at that era. And they were able, and when we talk about the players of that era too, there were some great players. And I wish I had, the kind of recall of a man your age, but it would be really interesting to go through and to look at some of their competition. I've got to do that now, Armand, because I can't rest until I actually look and investigate about some of that talent, because you might have me there. You might be right. So I'm going to have to look at that. But again, talent does need to be measured against eras.
Well, Pinball, I'll just quickly chime in. It's 11 championships for Russell, not 9. He won 11.
Yes, I thought so.
And listen, he's the guy who presents the Finals MVP award today. That's how legendary he is. And I'll just finish this. Wilt Chamberlain, Oscar Robertson, just 2 of the greats that he went up against on a regular basis. Hats off to Bill Russell.
Yeah, and one of the things that I didn't point out there was in so many cases, defense wins championships, and the way he defended and rebounded was as much of his excellence as the things that he did on the other end of the court.
For sure.
Offense sells tickets, defense wins championships, right?
That's it.